Welcome to all you surfers. Surf Report for June 19 through 20 shows you the main energy. It's going to show you where those influences are coming from. And then we're going to be looking for the solution. We've got 3 different parts here. We're going to show you the summary slide of all the different energies, the influence. Then we're going to drill down the influence so you can be, hopefully, you don't have to agree with me on the energies, but hopefully you see what I see and we can agree on the influence. And then we're going to show you what the solution is. We're going to use the I-Ching for that and Sidereal Astrology. So hang on to the very end. I do want to give a shout out to a couple people. Shalami commented, "Bummer, the audio is messed up." Thank you for speaking up because I didn't do my due diligence to listen to it before I uploaded it. And this is version number 2 of June 1920. So thank you, Shalami. Kirsten writes on the last surf report, "Yes, I had so much energy on Sunday and was happy, forward-thinking, solution-oriented, and positive of potential outcomes." This was a really important statement because in the last surf report, she clearly felt the energy that I had estimated, but it was on the other side of the continuum. And so, Kirsten, thank you, because I realize now that energy doesn't come on one side or one face of the coin. The energy comes in a ball or both sides of the coin. So there's 2 sides of the same coin, and I'll show you an example. But thank you, Kirsten, for that comment because of the following. I'm going to show you the summary slide. And as you can see, we now are including a continuum. And the continuum today, or 19 and 20 June, is revolution versus status quo. We are getting close to the summer solstice. Does that have anything to do with it? Well, according to the astrology, not quite yet. We have plenty of other things that are showing us revolution. The astrology on this side, we still have that Mercury, Mars, and opposing Pluto, Saturn, and now the moon is in there. Over the north and south nodes, that opposition showing some potential mega revolution, especially as Mars comes closer to Mercury. Or Mercury might just be past Mars by this point. They still are conjunct. We also have the moon in Aquarius, and that is significant because Uranus, the god of revolution, is ruling Aquarius, but it's squaring up to the moon. So we'll talk about all that and I'll show you. But that's a lot of revolution in there. And that's the purple circle. Inside the purple circle, superimposed over it, is this revolution in the Dreambot. It's the main theme. And there does seem to be an element of technology. We'll go through that in detail. And then the I-Ching reading is 49. And that is all about revolution. So we're heavily weighted in revolution. The other miniature Dreambot meme is status quo. That's on the continuum. Is it revolution or is it status quo? All right. What we're going to do is drill down after this. All right, and if you're not familiar with this, we just started the summary slides, and so you're going to see the summary down in the lower right-hand corner as we drill down these different energies. We're going to start with the Dreambot. This is the Carl Jung's collective unconscious, and we know this because these are what people are dreaming. Let's zoom in. The war and revolution is in the orange arrows. A lot of technology in there. So like Note, Ajax, and Galaxy, that's very technological. It's like phones and tablets and stuff. But there's clear revolution theme, and we don't know if it's a revolution in technology or maybe a revolution through technology or a revolution of technology. But we know that there's some sort of revolution or fight and clamoring. But there's also like guidance, and that's in the red arrows. Guidance is like father, pro, moderate, general. Okay, so general. Look at the word general. It's the first time in forever that I can think that one word is a part of all 3 memes. And so it can be part of the revolution or the war, because general obviously is part of the military. But then you've got in the red arrow guidance, a general guides. And then it can also be the blue arrows, which is normalcy and status quo. And, it's just kind of generally okay, or whatever. Generally, I agree. So general can mean all three of those things. So anyway, I want to point out that 3 is in there again. I. We saw that a couple CIRF reports ago. So that's back. Now let's go into the astrology, and you can already see with the moon tomorrow morning. This is the 19th on Wednesday morning. You can see the moon makes a conjunction with Pluto, and we can go into the detail on what that means. Pluto being very deep, emotional, and the moon also very emotional. So double emotional, I guess. But it's like we got to see this whole picture here. You got Pluto still hand in hand with Saturn. Now moon comes on board. You've got a triple almost darkness, but again, on a continuum. It's not all bad. This is not bad stuff. Pluto having a bad rap for being the destroyer. So that could be kind of a revolution, or that feeling there, just that conjunction there. But let alone you're on the south node and on a opposition to the north node with Mars and Mercury. Now, Mars and Mercury going forward in their rotation, Mars being the fighter, there's some war, but mind, that's Mercury, very mental and very planning. So planning on this war and planning on moving forward. Now, of course, kind of stuck in that Cancer energy of water, but nonetheless, this conjunction alone can look like a revolution or planning a revolution. But also, we have that stagnant energy from Neptune square Jupiter. This is still not exact, but they're so slow moving that this energy is still there. That square is still there. And this can be very overly optimistic. So, things like if you get this end of the energy, the Mars conjunct Mercury, where you're really moving forward and planning your future over the north node, this can trick you. This Neptune square Jupiter can say, yeah, you can do it, when you really can't. When you really don't have the resources, it's more fantasy than anything. And then you go and try, and it doesn't pan out. So be careful of that. Next, on Thursday, you still have that energy, and even more so because you get the Mercury is now making a conjunction with Pluto, and that's towards the end. So we've reached the climax of this particular gaggle of oppositions, but that energy is still going to remain for a day or two. Meanwhile, we still have the Neptune and Jupiter, and now you have the moon making a square over to Uranus. This is early in the morning, 8 a.m. on Thursday morning, the 20th. And this is going to be, if you don't agree with any of the other rebellions or revolutions, this has to be, because moon makes a square to, moon is in Aquarius, and Aquarius has a ruler of Uranus, and Uranus being all about unexpected change and rebelliousness. And, lo and behold, moon makes a square to it. And so now, not only unexpected change, but even more kind of hostility in the air. And I don't like this kind of syndrome. And so I'm going to make a change, even if it's not the right thing to do. So we've got all these influences, and they all tend to agree. Let's go look at the I-Ching and see what it says. Now, just so you know, we did, for those of you who know about the I-Ching, you cast your coins, and then you might have some change coins, which these all 4 dots are the change lines, and all 4 of them change, which transforms into a second. You can only have in any reading 1 or 2 hexagrams as a result. So the way I work this out in the tossing of the coins, I ask that the first coin, or not the first coin, but the first hexagram that comes out is the main influence that we will all have a high probability of feeling. And then if a change comes in, that change line, in other words, the second hexagram, will represent the solution. So this, in essence, is the transition slide from influence to solution. And the solution is to maximize the energy that is influencing us. All right. Judo in cosmic energy. All right. So the first reading was hexagram 49, revolution, transformation of forms based on highest principles and not simply for power. Very well said, but keep in mind here that this is the influence. This is not going out. This is not saying go out and have a revolution. This is the influence. So whether or not this is the solution is not the case, especially as we already see that there's 20 in the change line. But let's drill down a little bit more of 49 because it has 4 change lines. I won't go into explain how you get these change lines, but there were 4, and that's the most we've ever had in a CIRF report. And that represents that, to me, it represents that in order to get the solution, you have to really change up this energy. And so it tells me that revolution is not the solution. But let's go ahead and say it's not saying don't have a revolution. It's also saying that as long as these conditions, which I'll read out of the Rave I-Ching, as long as those conditions are met, you can have your revolution. All right. Revolution. This is change line number 1 at the bottom here. Change line number 1. Revolution has no support unless it is perceived as necessary. Now there's a lot of subjectivity there too, because who's the one that's perceiving? Change line 3 is Pluto in detriment. Now that's kind of crazy because right now Pluto is in retrograde. Pluto in detriment with with general support, a savageness in eliminating the old order that may permanently scar the new, and insensitivity in rejection and rejecting. So what that's trying to say is if you force this revolution when it's not the right timing, then your new world that you've just created is going to be so scarred that it probably wasn't worth the effort of doing the revolution. Next is change line 4, promises, 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 and only to guarantee support with little possibility of implementation. So you really got to be careful that you have the resources, that you have the support for this. Revolutions aren't easy, and they take an enormous amount of work. People resist change. It's called homeostasis. Then finally, on the top line, that's this change line 6, the power of revolution in action to expand its support. Basically what it's saying is if you do have the conditions needed for a revolution and you do start the revolution and it's correct thing to do, then chances are you'll have the needed support as you go along. So you're going to gain that support as you go along. You just have to decide if that's the right thing to do. Now let's look at the solution. Now, hexagram 20, contemplation, is about viewing. It's about noticing. It's about mindfulness, recognition, and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action. The Book of Changes brings in the king in this hexagram, and the king goes to the ends of his kingdom and starts just kind of influencing by instruction, not demanding, not forcing people to do things, but just by the aura and the instruction. And so that was the metaphor in your own life. It's just not really doing a lot of things, but noticing in the now, recognition and awareness of what's happening inside of you and outside of you. And in that awareness is the knowing on what the right action is. Now, some of you will have right action of revolution. Revolution in what? Well, revolution in your life, revolution in your community, revolution, whatever. There's lots of different forms of that. But not everybody has the right action of revolution. I want to make sure that's clear. And that's according to the I-Ching. Now, the other thing we do is look at Sidereal Astrology. And by the way, that 49 was up here. I forgot to highlight where the other one was a 20. So I don't see it. Well, it's over here in Taurus, but right next to Venus and Gemini. Why is that? Well, the Gemini influence actually comes in here in the solution. So clearly in the solution, because the heaviest influence is this opposition on both days. And it's even heavier on Wednesday, arguably, because you got the moon influence as well in there. But it's really potent on both days. So anyway, the Sidereal Astrology is where you go out and look in the sky and you see where the moon is. And tomorrow morning, you'll see it in Sagittarius. And so we want to get in line with the stars. On the one hand, it's Sagittarius, but this is an important side over here. So we also want to get in alignment with Gemini. Question: what is the commonality between Gemini and Sagittarius? They're on opposite sides of the zodiac, and they're both deep thinkers. Different kinds of thinkers, though. And that's the point, though. We want to focus in, according to the I-Ching, focus in on thoughts and contemplate. Sagittarius isn't just a centaur that goes running off into the sunset without thinking and impulsively explores the world. He is also the philosopher of the zodiac. So very, very deep thinkers, some mostly like religious and spiritual content, but just deep thinking in general. And Gemini, of course, with Mercury in that sign and the sidereal sign, is heavily thinking and maybe more rapidly thinking. Both of these, Gemini and Sagittarius, are kind of on edge, and they tend to be a little bit more impulsive. So we don't want to do that. That's according to the I-Ching. We want to sit still, quiet, and become aware and start to notice. Now, here's another conflict that you might be seeing, that your thoughts, because of this opposition on the south and north nodes, is going to have you thinking in the past and thinking in the future. We need now. The truth is in the now, and that's according to the I-Ching 20, the hexagram 20. So let's go look at the solution slides now that we have all that. So is revolution real, and is it the main influence, or is it an illusion? And that really depends on you. If you do this right, the right action is to sit and contemplate, think, but don't think in the past, don't think in the future. It's right now. It's what's happening right now. A lot of things that are happening right now are emotions, but also just situation around you. Start to notice more. Notice the things around you. Now, this picture is representative of just following the crowd, and that is not indicated here. That's an illusion. If you feel like you need to join the revolution, I would probably think that's a big red flag, because automatically just joining just to be included is not in the picture anywhere in this energy. It's deep thought. So the collective is begging for something new. That's very clear. Be still and contemplate if this is right for you. Okay, it's a personal decision. And then intervention will have this. And if you like these social media slides, I encourage you to go to Facebook and Instagram and look up Intervention or National Dream Center and subscribe to both. And you'll get these reminders. If you don't have time to watch these lengthy CIRF reports, then you can just get the reminders from social media. Contemplation before conformity. Right action requires clear thinking. Don't impulsively seek new. That's your Sagittarius. That's the downside of Gemini. So the downside of both of those. Equally, don't follow without assessing. So each individual will have to know for themselves whether or not revolution is in the cards. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for watching the second version of this. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so that you get notified of further CIRF reports. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Thursday.